Hey guys, it's Andrew here, and today I want to show you how you can use Electron.js to access your text messages on any desktop platform if you are using Android. So if you don't know what Electron is, it is a JavaScript framework that runs on node.js that, as it says here, you can build cross-platform desktop apps with JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So this allows you to run JavaScript code locally in on your desktop, and it's desktop independent, so it does not matter if you have Windows or Mac or Linux. Electron just works for it all. So that's the first part to this, and the second part is we're going to be using Google's Messages website. So if you don't know, and if you are using Google Messages, if you have an Android device, which a lot of people are, if you go to messages.google.com/web, you can actually access your text messages on the web. And if you go to your phone and you scan this QR code, it'll sync up and you will be able to send and receive text just like normal, but from your computer. So what I thought would be nice was to be able to access this on your desktop and not having to worry about what browser it's in or what tab it's in, and just kind of a more universal location to access this, almost like a desktop application would. So let's go back to my terminal here. All right, so let's create the directory that we want this application to live in. So I'm going to create a folder called desktop messages, and let's go into that. Perfect. Now we need npm for this because we need to install the Electron package. And you can use npm or yarn. I like to use yarn. It's just a personal preference, but either works. So first let's initialize it. And we can skip the initialization questionnaire by adding the -y flag at the end. There we go. So now we see our files. We have the package.json. So we can open this directory up in VS Code like this. And VS Code is my editor of choice. You can use whatever editor that you want. So let's see, this is the package.json. And really quick, I'm going to add a script. And I'm just going to call this start. And the actual command will be electron and then dot. So that will run electron pointed at the current directory, which is exactly what we want. So now we can close this and we can create a new file, index.js. So this is where the meat and potatoes of our application will live. So to start off, I'm going to just import a few things from the Electron library, and that will be the app itself, a browser window, and the tray. So this application will be primarily accessed through the tray. And that'll be from Electron. Perfect. So now let's make sure that our Electron app is up and running. So we can say app.onReady, and it's the second argument. It takes a function, so we can just quickly create a log and say the app has started. Perfect. So that's all we should need to get the Electron app up and running. So I'm going to save that, and I'm going to go back to the terminal here. And we actually will need to install Electron as a dev dependency. So I'm going to do yarn add electron-d. Okay, so now that is installed, I can clear the window here just to make it a little simpler to read. And now we should be able to use our script that we set up to start the Electron application. So I can just do yarn start. We can see our log saying the app has started. So perfect. So you'll notice down here that the Electron desktop application looks like something has started, right? There's nothing here. You can click on it, but nothing happens. And we actually don't want that to run like that. We want the application only to exist in the tray. So I'm going to stop this by hitting Control-C. If we go back to our application, just up here somewhere, I'm going to do app.doc.hide. And this is because this will just hide the application down on the dock. So if we go back to our terminal and we start it again, you'll see that the dock application icon has disappeared. So perfect. Perfect. So now we can get on to the main part of the application. So up here, I'm going to create two empty variables called tray and window. And I'll show you what those do in a second. So let's create a function. Actually, we can create the function right now. So I'm going to create a function called create window. And I'm going to now use this window variable that I created earlier and assign it to something. So I'm going to say window equals new browser window, which is coming from Electron. This takes in a few options. So you can look through Electron's documentation for all of the options available, but I'm just going to use a handful of them to accomplish what I want. So the first one is show, and we actually want that to be false because with how we want the application to work, we don't want the window to show right away when the application is first started. And we don't want there to be a frame. We want it to be as seamless as possible. And then we're going to set the width and height of the window. Now you can do a little bit of magic and figure out your screen width and determine it based off that, but I'm just going to use some set numbers right now just to make it a little bit easier. So I'm going to set this to the width to 900 and the height to 420. And there's another option called full screenable, which obviously just means if you're on Mac OS, it's if the window can be in full screen or not. And actually probably Windows 10, now that I think about it. We want this to be false. And the last one we want to do is resizable. So we don't want the user to be able to resize the window. And we're just doing that right now to kind of maintain some consistency for our application. Obviously, depending on what you want, you can use whatever options that works best for you. Perfect. So now the way that we can access the Android Google Messages website through our application is normally when you are using Electron, you would do window.load file, and then you would link this to your index or your app.js if it's like React or Vue or anything like that, and then you could load in your application, and that's how Electron would load your application in to this window. But instead, we're going to do load URL. And this is just we can enter any public URL, and I'm going to do HTTPS and see what the URL is. So it's going to be messages.google.com/web. So I'm actually just going to copy this, and that is all we should need for that. So that's going to load that URL into the Electron window. And then the last thing we want to do is window.onBlur, and this will take a function as well, and we just want to hide the window. So the reason we want to do this is because the window won't take up the full screen. We want to be able the user to click the background or click away and have the window hide so that the window is not constantly showing up. And that is all we need for the create window function. So now we can actually replace this log with create window. And if we go back to our terminal here and we start our application again, you can see that nothing will happen, right? Well, this is because show is false. If we just set this to true for a second and we restart our application, you can actually see that our window will come up 900 by 420 and that it will hide it. So let's go back to that again. And right now, there we go. So now this is actually loading from the web the Google Messages website. So this is exactly like we saw on here. So you could scan this QR code and you can have all your messages show up and it'll work like that. But right now the application isn't super useful because now I navigated away from it and I can't really access it. I don't know how to get back to it. It's just kind of an awkward, very unfriendly to the user. So let's cancel this again and stop that. And if we go back to the code here and change this back to false, so on initial load, we will not show the window. So let's do a few more things. Let's create a function called toggle window. I'll show you how this will be useful after we create this. And then inside this function, it's going to be a very simple function. We're going to use the window that we created. This is going to be a ternary statement, so we're going to say if it is visible, we're going to hide it, and if it's not visible, we're going to show window. And we haven't created the show window folder or the function yet, but we will in a second, and we'll do that right now actually. So we're going to do const show window, and we need to get the position. We need to get a consistent position where we want to show the window. So actually, before we do anything else in this show window, we're going to create another function that will get the window position. And actually, we'll just create it inside here, so we don't have to have a bunch of small methods floating around. So I'm going to create a variable called window bounds, assign that to the dimensions of the window, and then I'll do the same for the tray. So now this will be able to get the dimensions, and if you are familiar with JavaScript, it's kind of like get bounding rectangle client. So you get kind of the information about the window or the tray, the size, the X and Y location, and like the width and height, and just any information we need to know about where the element is on the screen. So now I'm going to set the const x to math.round. So now we need to determine the where we want our window to show up on the x-axis. So to do that, we're going to get the tray bounds dot x plus the tray bounds dot width divided by 2 minus window bounds dot width divided by 2. So what this does real quick is, first off, math.round will just round it to a whole number, as it says, the value to be rounded to the nearest number. So we're going to get the x location of the tray icon. So the x location, or the x value, will be the start of the icon. So it won't be the middle. So we're going to get the starting point, and then we're going to get the tray bounds width divided by 2, which is the middle of the icon. So we're going to get the middle of the icon, and then we're going to subtract the width of the window divided by 2. So we're going to subtract basically to get the middle of our window located centered with the middle of the tray icon. Hopefully that makes sense. So that is the x position. So now for the y position, we're going to do math.round. And this one's a little simpler. We're just going to do tray bounds dot y plus tray bounds dot height. So that's just saying wherever the tray bounds dot y is. So all of the tray bounds dot y will be in the same. All of the tray icons will be on the same y value. But we're going to say get the y value plus the actual height of the icon. So this will put the top of our window at the bottom of the tray bar. And then we are going to say window.setPosition and set it to x and y. And we have no z index or z value, so we're just going to set that to false. Alright, so that's all we need for the show window. So now we want to actually create the tray icon and the tray functionality. So I'm going to do const create tray. So I'm just creating another function here. And this will be, now I'll be using the tray variable that I initialized up here. So I'm going to say tray equals new tray, which is now the new Electron class, or the object, I'm sorry. And this takes in a icon as either a string or an Electron native image. So I have a image that I used that I just pulled from Google. Okay, so now we have our icon located in our project directory. If we zoom in, you can see, there we go. That's a little bit bigger now. We can see that this is our icon. So we can actually just access this through the file name because it is on the same level directory. So I'm just going to say message.pngs, and you can use whatever file or image that you want. I'm just using this. And now this also takes an argument. I'm sorry, this is not. So now we created our tray, and we're going to do tray.on click. So this will fire once the user clicks the icon. So this takes another method, and we're just going to do toggle window. So now we're using this method up here that we created earlier. So simply just clicking the tray icon will toggle the visibility of our window. And we are going to add this to the initialization of our app. So we're just going to add create tray so we can do that on the initial load. So that should be all that we need. I don't think I'm missing anything. So if we save this, we go back to our terminal and just clear this and do yarn start. We can see up here that we have our icon loaded in, and if we click it, it does nothing. And actually, I forgot the most important part of the show window method is the actual show command. So we just need to add window.show. And if we save that, we can now go back to our terminal and we can restart the application. And now we can see up in our tray that our icon is showing up here. And if we click this, this should toggle the visibility of the window. So you have to realize that when this is running, the application is now always running, even though the desktop, there's no desktop icon visible. But if we click the icon, we can now see that our window shows up and it is not in the position that we want it to be in. So let's try that. Let's try to fix that. We can see if we click this, it will toggle the visibility, which is perfect. So we're really close. We just need to figure out the Y position of the element. So we can stop our application and figure out what we did wrong. So I'm actually an idiot. So instead of window.getBounds for tray bounds, we just need to change this to tray. There we go. So that should be working now. So now if we restart our application, the window should be in the correct position. Okay, now I'll actually test this with my own phone. So I know you can't see, but right now I'm following the instructions. So I'm going to my messages and going to messages for web. And I am going to scan this QR code real quick and select remember this computer. And it doesn't take that long usually, so we'll see if we can get this to pop up pretty quickly here. And there we go. We can see that we can now see all my text, and we get this notification that I'm using mobile data, but I don't really care. So I'll show you that I can actually send and receive text. So I'm going to send a text from my phone to myself here. Let's just say, hey, YouTube. And you can see the sent over here, and now I received it. If you received a text from somebody else, you would get a standard Chrome notification up here, and you would be able to access that in your notifications. So there you go. There is a quick little application using Electron to be able to text from your desktop computer if you are using Android and Google Messages. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Leave a like and subscribe, and comment down below if you have any questions. I'd be happy to answer them. Also, I forgot to mention that all the code I wrote today will be available on GitHub, so I will have that linked down below in the description. Catch you guys later.